Hello, my name is Bruce. I'm a lifelong runner, which means throughout my life, I have encountered and overcome many running injuries and other barriers to running. Along the way, I've become a running coach, a physical therapist with a running subspecialty practice, and I'm the owner of a running store. In all my years of running, I've really accomplished a lot of things that I'm proud of. But what I'm most proud of is helping thousands of other people to become lifelong runners. I wrote the Running Injury Recovery Program out of a lack of lifelong frustration with good data and good protocols on running injury management. The world of running injury management is a scary place for runners, and I wrote this book to create a path. The main reason I became a physical therapist is because I was interested in running, and I was really interested, in healthy exercise, aiding in the prevention of treatment of disease. And 33 years later, I really love my job and coming to work. I know I became a PT because of running. I started to run in 1972 in the winter in New York City to cut out a PE. It was dodgeball. I hated dodgeball. I'm always vocal, or was vocal. The coach says, "You don't play dodgeball, go run around the track." I could cut out and run around the track and then ditch a little time when he wasn't looking. But through the winter, I started to enjoy running. And in the summer, school was out, I was running for health and fitness. It was 1972. I was 15 in Long Island. Teenage Wasteland was a hit song. I know running for fitness helped balance that out. Early in my running career, I developed injuries and had lots of barriers to running. And the truth is, it was a running store that first gave me some help, because I was a kid. I was running in Converse, flat, unsupported shoes, and good shoes helped. But then as I ran more and tried to do more, develop more injuries, I didn't find answers. And truth is I also did not find answers in my physical therapy education. So what really causes a running injury? Well, we have to look at it as a dysfunction in somebody's running. Because running should make our bodies stronger and healthier. If we run in a functional way, we get stronger and reach goals. So there's something internal and external in the factors of that individual person that leads to a injury or chronic injuries. So it's a mishmash of stuff that has lots of different factors. One preventable cause is running in wrong or improper shoes. That was one of the first things I learned was my feet do not do well in flatted, unsupported shoes, and that's been that way through my whole career. I need a little bit of an arch. I need a little bit of shoe under my heel, and I run much better if I'm in an unstructured shoe I slap. I treat a lot of injuries for runners winding up in wobbly shoes, or shoes that don't fit them, or shoes that are worn out. But one of the ones that is not talked about enough, and I know it's there from being in the industry, is defective running shoes. The industry does admit a 3% defect rate, and I myself was near crippled at really at the peak of my career when a running shoe fell apart on me. And by researching that story, I opened up the shop, and we're very proud of helping so many people to select great shoes. And the process of selection is written about it in my book. So, when we look at running injuries, there's a bit of desperateness and not a way to search. And as I was thinking about writing my book, I get a phone call from Michael Sandler, the author of Barefoot Running. He wants to come to the club and teach his clinic on barefoot running. Now, as a coach and triathlete, and I've taught barefoot running as part of transition to triathlon, but the only place I know to do it is on the beach close to the water. Because in Florida, I mean, we're talking about a warm tropical environment, and even the sand of the beaches have parasitic infection. So my first question to Michael is, where would we teach this? What about puncture wounds? That's a real concern. He said, well, it's not a real worry. Don't worry about it. And I was like, no. Puncture wounds have to be a concern, because if we're going to teach a clinic with the club, I have to have a place to do it. And, we didn't really get past that point. And as we looked at the trend of barefoot running, there was a desperate seeking for solutions to running injuries, with the simple answer that shoes are the cause of injury, so therefore take off your shoes and you won't have injuries. And one, with barefoot running, we would expose ourselves to health risks, but two, it doesn't take away the running injuries. And in fact, when people first start barefoot running, the running injury rates soar for even up to a year. So the running shoe industry addressed the barefoot running by having barefoot running shoes, and a lot of the vendors were coming out with barefoot technology. And so if we look at a racing flat, the weight-bearing surface of the flat is just over here at the forefoot. If we look at the water sandal, it's across, and the track spike. Now, this water sandal was first approached to me before Born to Run became popular by my sandal rep, and he brought it in as a water sandal. It is an innovative water sandal, and we were like, yeah, cool, but, we're a running shop, we don't sell water sandals. 6 months later, he came back selling it to me as a running shoe. It was a barefoot running shoe, and the word barefoot running became interchanged with running in a sandal. And so if we look at the weight-bearing surface of the track spike, nothing's faster. And we look at the weight-bearing surface here. Now, why is the difference between a sandal and a running shoe is a shoe has laces and sandals have straps. But then, very quickly after the shoe was released and the rep was telling me the benefits of barefoot running, and the vendor was advertising the barefoot running, this actually happened just as I was wear testing the product. Didn't run in it yet. And that very weekend, they put up this disclaimer. And this disclaimer follows the health benefits of running in barefoot shoes. With any new sport or activity, Vibram recommends you consult your physician or a medical professional to see if natural running in 5 fingers is right for you. It may not be appropriate for people with severe pronation or supination. And the reason this came up is the injury rate soared when healthy runners started running in barefoot shoes, which are basically flat, unsupported shoes. Vibram here is in a large product liability suit, false advertising, because of that. And I haven't seen, and you won't see ads about this anymore. So, the typical running injury management, unfortunately, is a combination of dope, tricks, tips, and avoidance, not intervention on how to find a dysfunction to make running functional. In other words, where's the impairment? Where's the weakness? Where in this mishmash of factors does a runner have to change to move forward for running? So we first begin with the concept of medication. Medication has place when a runner has difficulty doing normal daily function, but when we're running, the most medication will do is mask the pain. The worst it can do is weaken your body. Cortisone has a weakening and masking effect, and there's no standard of care for running on a cortisone shot. It was 31 years ago, 33 years ago, as a PT, you would never do strenuous exercise for 3 to 6 weeks after a patient had cortisone. We would do light exercise, recovery exercise, anti-inflammatory palliative measures, but we would only begin strenuous exercise when the person had the capacity to do the exercise and the cortisone was out of their system. It has a weakening effect that outlives the masking effect. 25 years ago, after having runners under my watch suffering ruptures in their foot after running on cortisone, I set the policy in the office. There is no running on a cortisone shot for 3 weeks and until we pass tests to know they're strong enough to run on it, or we're not doing the case. And I've not had one rupture ever since. Non-steroidal anti-inflammatories, Advil and Aleve, are commonly used, but the most they'll do, again, is mask the pain. But you'll never see advertisements on these products with running. And it was just about 15 years ago when I used to see Advil and Aleve aid stations at the races, at the marathon. In our club, there used to be Advil and Aleve sponsorship, and they're going into the packets. Hyponatremia is what started it. But hyponatremia is when a distance runner runs and takes non-steroidal anti-inflammatories, it can throw off their sodium in their blood and have life-threatening and life-altering consequences. And what's more interesting is just recently the data has been found that when runners run on anti-inflammatories, they're actually creating more inflammation than if they were not taking them. So, medication has a place to get to the patient to where they can do normal daily function, but it doesn't help us in progressing in running. But physical therapy has lots of tricks that I want to share with you. The electrical stimulator. So when we put electrical stimulation, when we put, cold compresses or hot compresses, it's really a trick of pain. Because when we stimulate the skin, sensory stimulation blocks perception of pain. So while the machines are on, the running injury feels very, very good, but as soon as it comes off, it does nothing to change the injury. It's just a trick. Deep into a run, it's about running. It's not about anything we can really do to you other than strengthen your body to your run. The feeling of support, the feeling, having things in our legs giving us feeling like it's doing something. Well, the trouble with support in running is throughout our body, running is a mid-range movement. We don't take our body to any extreme, and braces would limit our movement to extreme, and so there's really no mid-range brace that can have us run better or support us better. It's really the feeling of support. The feeling of support, the feeling of something's happening. Placebo medicine. Placebo effects are 30 to 68% effective. Placebo works great with acute problems. So you have a cold and you take something that's a placebo, generally the cold passes and you do fine. But if you have a diabetic and they take the placebo, well, their diabetes just gets worse and they can die. The feeling of support. So a placebo for running injuries would be awesome if the running injury would get better and the person can be allowed to run. And then they can have their magic tape or their magic support that allows them to train through the pain. But the problem is if a runner's having a chronic worsening problem and they're not addressing the factors in their body that's to make running more functional, placebo medicine leads to failure. Tips. When I was writing this book, I met with the editor, one of the editors of Runner's World, to talk about running injury management. And it was a great conversation, and I loved it. But we agreed on nothing. Because he kept to say, I'm a tips guy. And I'm like, no, I'm an advice guy. And what I mean by that is when I'm working with people, I have to understand the complexity of what's going on, get to know them, to try to understand the multi-factors to get them back to running, and how to take them step by step through it. Tips like strengthen your core. I always find the weakness in their legs. Running well is a core strengthening exercise. Running poorly, it all falls apart. But I always find the weakness in their leg. The weakness is in their running. There's something going on. The internet. Nothing drives runners crazy than looking for the internet for running injury management. It's kind of like looking up a virus. It's anything between you'll be sick for a couple of days and it's going to kill you. It's frustrating because it's non-specific advice. And there's lots and lots of great books on how to prevent injuries, but there's really not good information on how to get over injuries. And that's why I wrote my book. So avoidance. So if you don't run in a running injury, most of the time they get better. And if you don't run long enough, it's kind of like it's fine, but then you start to lose your runner's body. So there's two good risk factors for a running injury to predict who's going to be injured. One is less than 3 years experience, and that's 3 years of consecutive experience. We see the injury rate dropping very much when runners have experience, 3 years experience, and we also see more injuries in the person who's had a previous injury in the year before. So if we have these runners who go from injury to injury, which was my experience, and never really put together a good 3 years of running steadily, maybe having minor injuries, treating them, figuring out how to run better, understanding the complexity and dynamics of footwear selection with stride changes and pace changes and having your body strong enough to run, a runner gets labeled injury prone from going from injury to injury, cycling through avoidance, and never getting their body strong enough to make running functional. So a solution to the confusion is a running injury program. That's why I'm taking the time to talk about this today. And so the first book, the Running Injury Program, is a textbook, and it takes you through a guide, a step-by-step process to treat your own running injuries or assess the professional care you're receiving and incorporating the protocol of my book into your professional management and how to work together in a step-by-step process. My second book is the Running Injury Recovery Program Workbook, and that's really the step-by-step process for how the runner can fix their own injuries, and it takes you through from the moment you've identified an injury to your back training. So, to be effective, there has to be ongoing evaluation and self-evaluation, and the book has checkpoints to go through it step by step. One has to understand the severity and type of injury because we treat different injuries in different ways, and there's different phases of the recovery program. So we do different things in different times, and there's checkpoints to clear each phase or when to seek further help. So clearance, runners are different, and so are their injuries. So the clearance is very running related, very progressive through that relates to injuries, and there's really an individual plan. Very few people would go through the protocol in the same way because there's different branches that go through that and different choices. But when a person looks through it and they can just see the process they have to go through, they don't have to understand the complexity of what other people might or might not be doing. So an important thing I want to share with you, in my life, I've talked to a lot of runners, and the question is can I run? And what I teach them as the individual, it's the severity, not the type. Like, oh, a stress fracture is the worst thing. No, I'd rather have a minor stress fracture than any severe late stage ruptured muscular injury. It's not the type of injury, it's not the region of the injury, it's the severity. So we use the running injury scale, which you learn through the book, and we have 5 injury stages. Each of the injury stages have red flags, and the red flags are begin self-management. The non-red flags is be alert and aware. So your stage 1 emerging symptoms is an unusual, disconcerting pain while running. If a runner it's unusual and disconcerting, they should be aware of it. Doesn't mean they have to stop or do anything, but it's be aware. Red flag is pain that alters your stride. And so in the book we go through lots of mental focus and awareness exercises to determine what kind of stride you're going to work with throughout your recovery program. Stage 2 is pain at rest after running. It's an unusual, disconcerting pain. It's not your regular soreness. That's, again, beginning of awareness. Now, a red flag and a time to begin self-management is pain that disturbs your rest. Runners are healthy people. And running injury pain that disturbs your rest is a red flag. You have to try to understand and begin intervention. Have a plan to deal with it. Running injury stage 3, pain during your normal daily activities. That's a sense of caution, pain. We can sort out whether it's regular soreness or unusual and disconcerting, and we'd be aware of it. Red flag is pain that interferes, that makes you avoid normal daily activity. If you're regularly getting to a red flag, understand what's going on, begin to intervene. Here's the thing, and this is what's unusual about my program, for flag, which is running injury pain that you take medication for. No matter where the other injury is, stage 4 is a red flag because any running injury can become stage 5, that pain that cripples you. And when runners are crippled from running injury pain, bad things can happen to them. And so we need to get them out of the state. It's a bad place to be. So safe return to lifelong running is fixing bad habits, identifying bad habits, learning how to choose right equipment that is working for what you intend to do it for, and learn to monitor your injury stages and learn to intervene and have a plan to intervene before you need them. It's the reason I wrote my book. If you can't fly, then run. If you can't run, then walk. If you can't walk, then crawl. But whatever you do, keep moving. Boy, as a physical therapist, that is so true. We need to protect our ability to run. We need to have a plan for when we can't run, and we've got to fight when we can to get back to running. Thank you. I'll take questions now. Okay. How is my approach different to running injuries, different from the doctor? Well, the one big difference is we have to watch somebody run. The second big difference is I'm working on coaching. I'm working on habits. We're not micro treating a specific piece of tissue. We're working on running. Do we have another question? Oh, okay. Let's end this. We'll have, yeah.